It's January 3rd, 2018, and this is my second attempt at making this podcast. I love my dog. I love her. Really, I do. But, ever since we moved into this house, she's just decided to become a little barking fiend. So, yeah. So, even when she's downstairs, if she starts barking, all you're gonna hear is barking. The microphone's too good, and she barks a little too loud. So, had to apply a little kennel training. Didn't like to do it, but it's the way it works. So, I actually got like 20 minutes into the last one, and then she went off. But I am not editing these together, so I'm gonna just try to pick up and start over. So the last podcast I talked about my Christmases as far back as I can remember from 1981. And this was based off the Netflix documentary, The Toys That Made Us. The first 4 episodes are up, so kind of reminded me, like, toys at Christmas. And Christmas is not exactly the happiest moment in my life. Like, I always look forward to them. But Rob's house, Rob's mom always found a way to inject way too much drama into that holiday. But it kind of all stopped around 1991. So the previous year, my mother moved out of the house after the crazy Christmas we had, where she decided to have her husband. That was crazy. So my father had my mother and her husband rent out his bedroom. Yeah. So, I got to go to the school at the time and tell everyone that I live with my dad, my mom, and her husband. And then my pops, he slept on the couch. Whatever. Because he had his own job, his own company doing security. So he kind of just, I don't know, just lived wherever. He slept whenever. And, but she moved out, and it was just my father, my brother, and I for the majority of that year. During the summer, I was supposed to stay like 2 weeks or something with my mom. My mom decided to let me stay up at my cousin's place, who lived in Cerritos, which is right outside of Anaheim, so you can see like the fireworks from Disneyland from my cousin's house at the time. And her and I are like we're like brothers and sisters. So her stepbrother, while I was staying up there, her stepbrother came back from college, and he had all these Nintendo games. And for years I had the same Nintendo games since 1985. It's like 4, like Mario, Wrecking Crew, Pinball, Hogan's Alley, and Commando. 5 games. So he had like hundreds of these games. So I was only supposed to be there 2 weeks, but I stayed for a couple months actually. I got along with my cousin and my aunt, so they didn't mind me staying there. And after playing Nintendo games, like all these different games, Metroid, over and over, her stepbrother went out and got a Genesis and Sonic the Hedgehog like the day it came out. And he brought it in, and I was like, what is a Genesis? I don't know. And then Sonic, kicks in, and it's got the Sega, and fucking blew my mind. I mean, it was like the sound, the music, the colors, It was like better than the arcade. What you could get at the arcade, right? So it blew my mind. Like I just fell in love with Sonic the Hedgehog. And I came back and just pleaded with my father to get a Genesis and Sonic for Christmas. Like I think this, other than really like asking for Batman and Turtles on VHS, like I was making the case for this. Like I never asked for shit, so um, I went out my way. And my dad, he could be a big kid at times, so it was nice. And remember, he looked at me. He's like, "All right, look, we can do this, but Nintendo has a Super Nintendo coming out, and then there's the Genesis, and you can only get one." And I was like, "Fuck Nintendo." I bought into the hype, that Nintendo was for kids, and I was growing up, and so we got a Genesis and Sonic, and my dad at Christmas wanted to introduce me to his new girlfriend and her two kids. So we got the Genesis, the games, and my dad said, "Hey, well, actually, my dad told me he was going to get, he felt bad about the year before about that we got toys for like 4-year-olds. And so I had said, hey, instead of trying to figure out what we want, I just tell you, or we could go together, like the day after Christmas to Toys R Us and just go pick some stuff out, right? Like give a budget and we'll just go pick some stuff out. And my father like really appreciated that. It's like I had to go and negotiate with him, for a happy Christmas, and it turned out to be way easier because he didn't like figuring out what I wanted. And so we got the Genesis, and we took her kids and we went down to the Toys R Us and picked out a few games. So I got Sonic, Streets of Rage 1, Granada, which was this tank shmup game that was pretty cool, and Disney's Fantasia. I don't know why. It was a beautiful game, but just fucking lame platformer. It wasn't a very good game. It was beautiful, but that's about it. So that was 1991, and I had to say, aside from the first Christmas I had, I'd say it's probably the best Christmas I had since 1981, like 10 years, 82. So that was great. So the following year, his girlfriend and her kids moved in with us. So the next Christmas, 1992 was my freshman year in high school. And we did, see, her kids really wanted gifts, so they did some gifts on Christmas, and then we went to Toys R Us the next day. I told my dad, I just don't care for the gifts, like I want Sonic the Hedgehog 2, but I'd still prefer to go out, but his girlfriend really insisted that we not do that. So that year we had to have like a regular Christmas. And so I got Sonic 2, and they got me another stereo, which was fine. I don't know. I think she thought I was way into music. Like I would record soundtracks from like movies and just play them back. I had this little tape recorder, so it was nice, but I didn't care. The next year, I was able to get, in 1993, I was able to get my dad to just do the Toys R Us thing. So I had the day after Christmas. So I got money on Christmas, and then the next day we went to Toys R Us. And I didn't have enough to get a Super Nintendo, but I did have enough to get a Game Boy, Super Mario Land 2, and Link's Awakening, and this thing called a Superboy. And a Superboy was like this add-on for your Game Boy where it was like two speakers that would fold over, and there was like the screen, so you'd unfold them to get like the stereo sound, and it had a giant magnifying lens for the screen so you can enlarge the picture. And then my favorite thing was this slider you could put over the D-pad that gave you a much bigger, like analogish kind of D-pad and big buttons. Fit my hands nicely. And the Game Boy was super cheap that year. I mean, I think it was like $70. I think it was $69.99, and it included Link's Awakening. So I had like $120 or something. So I was able to get that and Mario and the Superboy. My stepmother, he married his girlfriend, and she turned mean on me that year. Like, she was really nice the first couple years, but man, she just, I don't know, she just turned into a real pain in the ass. I think I have this problem growing up. Like, I think my family was waiting for me to turn into like some kind of vicious, evil asshole or something. And it never happened. And when it wouldn't happen, they'd get really mad. Like, I didn't smoke. I didn't have any drug problems. I didn't drink. I just wrote. I drew. Played video games. Did my homework. Took care of my brothers. Did chores. Like, I was a pretty well-behaved kid. And I just drove. My dad dated troubled women. And sad to say, like, they weren't that much older than me. So she was like 10 years older than me. So just a lot of resentment, sadly. So she didn't like the Game Boy. But my dad didn't give a shit. So she was gone by Christmas '94. And that's when I finally got a Super Nintendo. That was a long chain of events, almost 5 years. I was a junior in high school when I finally, so we're talking from the 7th or 8th grade to junior in high school, which look, it isn't that long when you count the years up, but mentally it feels like 10 years. That was also in 1994. That was the first Christmas I'd had like a girlfriend ever. So I got to spend some of the time with her family that year. I spent Christmas Day with her family because my dad had to work. And then the next day, I went out with my dad and my brother to Toys R Us, and I got the Super Nintendo and Mario Kart and Mario World. God, that was a long way. I remember back in 91 when I got Sonic, I was so happy. And a month or two later, I don't know, maybe it was later than that, but no, it was in May of the following year. Because my father would forget my birthday, because he wasn't around when I was born. So, I would never bring my birthday up to my dad because I don't want to bother anybody. So the May of the next year, we went to the mall to celebrate my brother's birthday, and I had mentioned to my father that I was like, "Hey, it'd be nice to get something for my birthday," and he was like, "Huh?" So I got the CD or something, but we were at the mall for that, and I looked in this window of a Woolworths, and they had Super Mario World. And I finally got to see it moving, and like how big the game was. And I was like, fuck, I picked the wrong system. I was like, no, why did I? I mean, Sonic's great, but there's a depth to Nintendo games that the Sega games didn't have. You could beat the levels, and the levels would have their things, and that would be it. But with Mario, I felt like, you can still play those games to this day and find new shit in them, like, and so that was a good lesson, because every year I'd ask for a Super Nintendo and they'd be like, nope, 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 nope. And my dad actually, like, remember, got into a slight argument with my stepmother in the 93 year about it, because he'd wanted straight A's and stuff, and I finally started doing, like, took me a little while, but I got straight A's, and she wasn't having any of that shit, I don't know, she was mad at me for not being a fuck up. We've settled our scores since then, by the way. She's bipolar, so she's on medication now, she's good. But I didn't know I was dealing with a bipolar person, and in 1994, and fucking no one knew what that shit was. So my dad was diabetic and didn't know it, and she was bipolar. So my fucking 8th grade through senior year in high school was a fucking nightmare. Like, everyone was like, Rob's crazy. I'm like, I fucking assure you people I am not. Like, but I was so happy with that Super Nintendo. Christmas in 95, my senior year. So my dad got a nice bonus that year from one of his clients. And I got almost $800 in cash. He got $1,600. He split it between my brother and I. Now, because of my father's strictness, I had gotten a job at Pizza Hut. Actually, I tried getting a job a year before on my birthday in 1994. And they're like, we don't hire people unless they're a certain age. I think it was like 16. I was 15. So I was like, I'll see you in 12 months. So I came right back on my birthday, 1995. I was like, all right, I'm old enough now. And I got a job at Pizza Hut. But my dad, that didn't last more than a month or two, because by Christmas it was over, because my father wasn't having me not being home. So that money I got for Christmas needed to last for everything I had planned. I needed to buy a yearbook. We had prom and a Christmas dance, my girlfriend and I. So what I did, and I was on crutches. My younger brother had broken a measuring cup on the floor in the kitchen, and I went in there to go get some cereal and stepped on, almost cut my toe right off. So I had never had any accidents as a kid until that moment. And my dad was like, why didn't you watch where you were going? I'm like, what? He always defended my brother, so I was like, am I really? Is this my fault too? For real? For real? It's hilarious. So what I did was I got my girlfriend some CDs and a little necklace, and then I went to KB. Instead of Toys R Us, I went to KB's at the mall, because KB's was going out of business. Tons of clearance. And so I went in there, and they had all these Earthworm Jim and Exo Squad toys, and Robotech toys, and cool shit. Wildcats figures, like stuff I enjoyed, thought was awesome. Dirt cheap. So for like $100, I got like, I did the math, I think it was like $300, $400 worth of toys for nothing, and put the rest towards my prom. So I came back. I came out the mall. I had my friends with me, a few of my friends. I came out the mall with a giant sack of toys in this bag. Like, I just slung it over my shoulder like Santa. And it's the last time I ever bought toys, I think. I mean, definitely like that. I mean, I bought a few here and there, but yeah. So where are we? 1996. No, 1996. I had graduated high school. So this Christmas, I had spent the summer living in my girlfriend and I broke up, but her family had a trailer in the back of their yard. They lived next to an airport, and so I had rented out that trailer and lived back. Well, it wasn't even a trailer. It was a camper that you put in the back of a truck, like a flatbed camper on stilts. No heating. And the electricity was ran from their house, but I rented that out, moved out of my dad's house. And I was there until it got too cold. Like, I mean, it was getting down to the 20s. So, super cold year that year. So, my mom said I could stay with her, sleep on her couch, and she'd help me get a job with the city, and I could get my own place eventually. And the job with the city didn't pan out. So I went and got a job at a toy company called Playco. Because I was like, if I'm going to get a job, I want to be somewhere where I enjoy working. I have no toys. And I knew that this Playco had been there since I was a kid. My dad actually had stopped a robbery there once. Playco, if you want to see the store, they're gone now. They went out of business a year or two later. But I was there right at the end. But if you go see a movie called Jingle All the Way with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sinbad and the kid from The Phantom Menace, that Playco was one of our LA branches, San Marcos or something. I did inventory there a couple times. That following Christmas. That March after the Christmas season. But that was the Christmas of. I had just gotten a Nintendo 64, and that was which I had saved up all summer for. It was fucking crazy. I saved up. I worked at Wendy's that summer. Saved every dime I could. Did yard work on the weekends. Pre-ordered the Nintendo 64 with Mario 64. Picked it up on September 30th or September 29th, 1996, and then quit my job. And then just lived off the rest of my money for about a month until I moved in to my mom's place and then got the job at Playco. And that was the Christmas of Beanie Babies and Tickle Me Elmo. So working at a toy store that Christmas was just fucking crazy. It took maybe a week before they realized how much video game knowledge I had and put me in charge of all the games. So that was nice. I ran the video game section at a toy store. The first Christmas Nintendo 64 came out. And that was fun, man. It was fun making fun of the Saturn people because their system was dead. And I was like, ha ha ha. But that's where I came to appreciate the Saturn, because we had a Saturn station set up, which was like this big kiosk behind a plastic shell, and there was a Saturn in there, and they had Virtua On and a few other games in there. And I actually really came to like the Saturn because of that. And that's where I got to play a lot of PlayStation for the first time. I was so anti any system other than Nintendo because of all those years with the Genesis that I had wanted a Nintendo. But working there taught me to appreciate all the systems, plus PC. And that was like the funnest job I probably ever had. Got paid nothing. But yeah, that was fun. That was a fun Christmas. I mean, I'd get up around 5:30 in the morning, take the bus, take about an hour to get down to the work. I spent all my time reading game magazines, like Game Fan and PlayStation Magazine and Nintendo Power. Get to work a little early. It was across the street from a Jack in the Box, so I'd get my breakfast at Jack in the Box, go to work, and I'd be there all day until the closing, and then I'd come back out and I'd do a lot of writing for my Star Wars role-playing campaigns I was setting up, take the bus back, and then play video games all night. And that was life for me. I'd draw a couple times a week. But 1996. This is going to take one more episode, I think, to get through the rest, because then we get into the work years very quickly. Like, this is the last of the childhood. We got one more year of Rob getting to be a kid, and then it's work mode. It is January 3rd, 2018, and I need to get my ass to work. Peace.